sure it might be Italian flag color. To a new reading vlog. There's no particular theme this week, but I didn't get to read in the 1 o'clock hour or the 3 o'clock hour because I had a migraine, and I'm all good now, but I did not want to read when I felt like that. And then I had to film my video, and you know, salespeople coming to the door, they interrupted my video, so it took a little longer to film, and it's just one of those days, I guess. One of those days, but I feel good now, and I am going to read later. I have no hockey tonight. My team got eliminated from the playoffs. We're losers. I totally expected the Leafs to lose. I even put money against them. So go Canes, you know, my hometown team is who we're pulling for now and who my family pulls for. So I am totally cool with that. Okay, yeah, we weren't going to get into a whole hockey thing, but then the weekly quote is, you only get one life. It's actually your duty to live it as fully as possible, by Jojo Moyes. Yeah, you gotta do it. That's you. Oh gosh, I forgot I had the receipt there because I need to do my haul from last week. But let's go through the weekly TBR. On yesterday, I started On the Line, Notes from a Factory by Joseph Pontes, translated by Stephanie Smee. And this is about a man who is working in a fish factory in France. It is a poetry. It's a novel told in poetry. And says, unable to find work in his field, Joseph Pontes starts to pick up casual shifts in the fish processing plant and abattoirs of Brittany, France. Day after day, he records the nature of work on the production line, the noise, the exhausting rituals, the physical suffering. But as he works, he finds solace in a life previously lived, the woman he loves, the happiness of a Sunday, Poke Poke the dog, the smell of the sea. The best-selling French novel in verse is a poet's ode to manual labor and to the human spirit that makes it bearable. I do absolutely love this cover. I don't know if you can tell how it's kind of like, there's a texture to it. So I started that yesterday, didn't get to it today. And the book that's the main focus of this vlog is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult, and we are tabbing this book. Let me tell you all what this is about. So Ruth Jefferson is a labor and delivery nurse at a hospital in Connecticut. She is going about her shift like any other day, and she comes in to find this one baby has a heart murmur. So she goes to put into the file, and the father of the baby is like, I don't want you touching my baby. So she's taken aback. She's like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? And it turns out that the family of the baby are white supremacists, and Ruth is a black woman. The baby then in the nursery goes into cardiac arrest. Ruth has been told not to touch this baby, but it's in cardiac arrest. What is she supposed to do? She was told she wasn't supposed to touch him, but she's like, I gotta save his life. That is my job. I am a nurse. And the baby ends up not surviving. So therefore, we go into a big legal battle between the family of white supremacists and Ruth and the hospital. And it is a powerful book so far. Next, we have my mood read, and that is A Keeper by Graham Norton. This is a mystery thriller taking place in Ireland. Our main character of Elizabeth, her mother has passed away, so she's been living in the States, so she goes back to Ireland where her mother is living and is just, taking care of things there. And when she is going through her mother's old house, she finds letters. Now, Elizabeth has never met her father before. She was told that he died when he was young, so she has no notion of who he was. We also have, so there's that mystery there, and of who these letters are from, what they mean. We also have our past timeline following Patricia, who is Elizabeth's mother, and going through her life story taking place 40 years earlier. Lastly, we have my ebook pick, which is The Score by Elle Kennedy. We have our main character of Allie, who is getting out of a long-term relationship. She hooks up with a random guy who is Dean De Laurentiis, who is the playboy of the school's hockey team. This is a college romance. No, this is very unlike Allie to just have a casual hookup with somebody. She is somebody who prefers long-term relationships and all of that. Then we have Dean, who, as I said, he's the playboy of the hockey team, but he thinks he might be catching feelings for Allie when he's not a one-woman kind of guy. So that is the weekly TBR. Those are all the books that I'm reading this week. I will be getting into Small Great Things later because, again, I had to film and just did not have time to get into the book today. And then we're all natural today. No makeup. My hair is natural. Yeah, we're just taking it easy. Take it easy. It is time to do my nightly update. Did I talk about the people who like interrupted my video? They were AT&T about like internet stuff, so we might do some stuff with that. We don't know though, but the guy sent us the info and everything. Yeah, the people came back. That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, were they walking around the neighborhood for like 4 hours? And like I think the heat index was like 85 today. That's crazy because, you know, they're in long pants and everything and in dark color shirts. Like, I feel bad for the AT&T workers. But we are going to go through my thoughts on Small Great Things from the day. So if you're curious about like what my other notes were that I took over the weekend, I'm sorry that I don't vlog on the weekends. And I do have these notes that I will tell y'all once we hit 75%. These are like my biggest takeaways from the quarter of the book that, you know, I do every quarter. But today we started, so I read 39 pages. Again, not as much as I would usually read, but since I didn't read in the 3 o'clock hour today, I only read about half as of what I usually do. So this is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult, again, to let y'all know. And we today we started with Kennedy's chapter, or a Kennedy POV chapter, and she's like, I think my client hates me, the client being Ruth. And it was just so like annoying reading from, because it's just such a white person problem, privilege problem, first world problem, whatever you want to say. Because I'm like, why does that matter when this woman is going on trial for murder? Like, but that's the thing, there will be a lot of little annoyances like this with characters, but at the same time it's like, yeah, this is real. Because I mean, that obviously makes sense for someone to be kind of like insecure, being like, oh my gosh, I don't think they like me. Like, I've been there, not in like a lawyer and this kind of case, but I've been there where I've been scared, where I don't think a person liked me when we first met. And I was thinking about this earlier. There have been several I can think of 2 instances in like the last year where I've met somebody and I'm like, I don't really think they liked me. What did I do that was wrong? Did I say something? But then it turned out like they followed me on social media later or something, or we talked or something later, and I was like, okay, it was just inside my head. Maybe that person was having a bad day. Maybe I just interpreted things differently. So just to let y'all know, not necessarily in this case here with Kennedy, that if you get that vibe, it can be a whole boatload of things, and you know, it might not be the case at all. But it's just something that I've been thinking about a lot, where I was just kind of shocked to then be like, oh, that person did like me. Yeah, just little things like that. But yeah, what I'm saying is that there are these little annoyances where I'm just like, oh my gosh, but I'm like, it's realistic. It's how people are, how people operate. I've seen it in myself before. The next one is, we have Ruth and Kennedy. They are just getting to know each other, like on a personal level, because they're going to go through the ringer with each other. Like, they are going to court together, and Ruth felt like, or at least Kennedy thinks Ruth feels like she needs to like introduce herself, like in a setting that is, one, kind of a neutral setting, because they go to TJ Maxx, and a setting that just isn't an office, you know, not something more, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. But they're going all telling about each other's lives, and Ruth tells her about Christina, who is the white girl who was the daughter of the family that Ruth's mother worked for. And it's like, she tells me too how Christina tried to give her money. She sounds awful, I admit. Ruth considers this. She's not. It's just what she knows. She never learned any other way of being. And again, that just shows what a great person Ruth is. We talked about this in the last vlog, that it just amazes me how my friend who I'm buddy reading this with, he brought up that Ruth is somebody who like sees the best in people. And I try to be like that. I'm not going to say it always works, but it is something that I try to do. And I mean, sometimes should we be like that? I don't know. It's, again, this book brings up so many interesting things like that of what is right, what's not, and that kind of thing. I'm just looking here. Now, another big theme in this book that I just thought of reading this is it's, again, how we're raised is what shapes your beliefs and all, but I do think you can be raised one way, and then once you're an adult, you can start doing your own research, and you're seeing the world through the eyes of an adult, that your opinion can change. And I think it's important that our opinions do change and all as we age and go through life and get different experiences under our belt. But yes, it is a big theme here of people are born. There was a quote, I don't know if we talked about in last week's vlog, about babies are a clean slate. They're so pure. They don't have any beliefs yet. The world hasn't corrupted them, if you will. And yeah, it's this. And then like this woman who, I mean, obviously she's in her 40s at this point, and they're like, Ruth says she's not. It's what she knows. She never learned any other way of being. Yeah, that's a lot to think about. Very thought-provoking book here. Okay, then we had something an OG reader, the original reader, highlighted. Now, I'm not going to say the N-word. I'm not. Even if it's a quote, I don't think that I or any other white person should do that. But basically, they are eating, you know, the tins of like nuts that people buy for like Christmas. You can really buy it any time of year, because like my dad buys pecans any time of year, because we do live in somewhere where pecans are like the big produce or whatever. Uncle Leon had a like racist name for these kind of nuts, Brazil nuts, where he used the N-word in the name. Kennedy is calling her mom out for it. And I hadn't even known what the N-word meant back then. I'd laughed like everyone else. It wasn't, and the mom says, it wasn't like Leon was ever going to change. And Kennedy said, not if he had an audience. And then it goes to another quote on the next page. Back then, North Carolina wasn't like it is here, my mother says. Maybe that wouldn't have been the case if people like you had stopped making excuses. So yeah, if you're seeing something, call people out on their BS. Yeah, if you are experiencing another like white person who is being racist, maybe be like, hey, educate them on it. We'll get to about educating people in that regard in a minute. Okay, and then in Ruth's chapter, she's talking about her son, how he vanishes into his room and blares Drake and Kendrick Lamar. This book was published in 2016, but just kind of funny with modern pop culture. Drake and Kendrick Lamar do not like each other very much, if you weren't aware, so this is kind of funny to see their names paired together here. But now we have the like educational moment that I was telling you about. So Ruth and her son go over to Kennedy's house for dinner. Again, they're just, you know, building a relationship with each other. And Kennedy has a like 4-year-old daughter. I don't know how old she is, but you know, she's a little girl. And she sees the chain that Edison's wearing, and she's like, Edison, Violet asks, is that a chain? He touches the necklace he's been wearing lately ever since he started hanging out with his cousin. Yeah, I guess so. So that means you're a slave, she states matter-of-factly. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I was not expecting that at all. And so this again goes into the point where Kennedy is not, you know, an extreme racist where she's calling like people slaves and all of that. But so it's like, I was like, oh my gosh, where did Violet learn this from? I was like, did she learn it from her grandmother? Like, where did this come from? But then Violet explains that in school, Violet announces Josiah told Taisha that people who look like her used to wear chains, and their history was that they were slaves. And so everybody is just like her parents are like, oh my gosh. And Ruth, she's like, no, we need to have an educational moment here. Ruth was not mad at her because she is a little girl. She does not know any better. And Ruth explains, you know, what a slave was and all of that. So, and then she's like, slaves weren't even just black people, because in the Bible, the Egyptians made Jewish people slaves, and that this isn't just black history, this is history for everyone, because I mean, the history of the world is history, like, it impacts everybody, let me tell y'all. So I was really glad to see that Ruth didn't get mad at a child, and she made it an educational moment to explain why you shouldn't say that and, you know, the history behind it. So I think, again, it just shows the kind of person that Ruth is. And this book does such a great job at getting emotion across. Just like, even like the sense of humor moments, or if a character makes a joke or anything, I do actually laugh. And it just does such a great job at getting the emotions across. And I do think I have one more tab that is about that. And there was one scene that I laughed at about Ruth just telling a story about her mom that I thought was kind of funny. And then it's like, I let out a breath I had not even realized I'd been holding. This is the third or fourth time that saying has happened. And I know, like, there's people online always point out about writers using that phrase, and I don't understand why they use it so much. And lastly, this one scene made me so emotional because Ruth is just like thinking that her mother wasted her life being a like maid for this family and taking care of that family. And Ava, who is Candy's mother, she, you know, grew up in North Carolina in the 1940s and 50s, and she also had a black woman who was like a maid in the house, who was like her caretaker and everything. And Ava pulls out a photograph of them together, and Ruth is like, you can definitely see the love in that picture between the black woman and Ava. And it made me so emotional because it's like, I didn't know your mother, but Ruth, she didn't waste her life because of that picture. I was like, oh my gosh, that just makes me want to cry. So those are my thoughts for the day on Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. Hey guys, happy Tuesday. I am here to give y'all my update on Small Great Things. I got to 81%, so we made it through the third quarter. I read 86 pages, so quite a good chunk that I read here today. I know there's some spoilery tabs, so some of this I can't tell y'all. But yes, one of my theories was right, so that is always nice. I'm so curious. So when they are getting the jury together for the trial, I'm so curious if this is how it really goes down, and I have no reason to doubt it just because how well researched this book is, where they will like drive by the people's houses to see if they have like political campaign signs on the lawn. Are they rich? Where do they work? Do they have a flagpole in the yard? Like, they look at your social media. I had no idea that any of this went down, and it's honestly crazy to think everything that goes into it. It makes sense, but who knew? And I think I was thinking of, what am I going to write this book? And I was thinking of the setting, because I was like, does it really play that big of a role into the story? So when I read the description of this book, I was like, I think this is going to be in Atlanta. I think this is going to be, that's just where I thought this book was going to be, but it's actually in New Haven, Connecticut. And I do think that is important because it shows that racism can happen anywhere. It's not just in cities in the South, because, you know, the South is, you know, known for racism, that it can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter what city, it doesn't matter, like, they're in a hospital, it can happen anywhere. So I did think about that when I was trying to think over the setting of the story and how does it play a part in the story. We do have a quote from Original Reader here that says, "Do you think there will ever be a time when racism doesn't exist? No, because that means white people would have to buy into being equal. Who would choose to dismantle the system that makes them special?" And yeah, that is definitely so true. And then we find out about some medical stuff. I'm not going to go into that tab. So now we're in stage 2, which is pushing. And I'm so scared that some like big act of violence is going to happen. Like, scared for the characters, like it wouldn't ruin the reading experience or anything, but I am just so worried. I'm like, something really bad is gonna have to happen somewhere in this book. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but I have that feeling, and it scares me. Yeah, after somebody goes through this, like Ruth being accused of murder, how do you move on after that? Let's say that she does, like, is in, like, is proven innocent, that's the word I was looking for, what do you do? Because nobody's going to want to hire you after that. And I know that's only, so there's the debate of felons and the jobs that they can get. But I'm saying if she is proven innocent, what do you do after that? Like that, I guess you go write a book and get a book deal and make money. I don't know, but I don't know what work you do after that. And yeah, Kennedy in the court, I'm just like, whew. This is crazy. It's immersive. This little paragraph about Christina, who is the friend, she is the daughter of the family that Ruth's mother worked for. I realized that for years I made the assumption that Christina looks at me as someone from her past to be tolerated and unfortunate to be helped. As a child, I felt like we were equals. But as we got older, as we became more aware of what was different about us instead of what was similar, I felt a wedge drive between us. I secretly criticized her for making judgments about me and my life without asking me questions directly. She was the diva and I was the supporting player in her story. But I conveniently forgot to point out to myself that I was the one who'd cast her in that role. I blamed Christina for building that invisible wall without admitting I had added a few bricks of my own. And oh my gosh, I've never thought about that these people in your lives, you make that role for them. Sure, their actions help build that. It takes two to tango. And I just never thought about that. So thought-provoking. And then we are hearing about Ruth's experiences with patients where their child has died, and how there is the kangaroo suite. It's called that because there's like a mural with a kangaroo on it, and that is where the grieving families will go and have like those last moments with their baby. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so emotional. And I want to go through my big points, my big thoughts for that third quarter of the book. The first being how this hasn't been trauma porn, how we talked about with A Little Life, that was the last book I read, and how that was just dumping trauma on us. And yes, we are seeing somebody going through like something so awful and terrible in life, being accused of murder. This is real life. And how there is still moments, there's every emotion in this book. You do have your comedic relief with characters like Wanda, Violet, and Ava, who is Kennedy's mom. I didn't know her name at the time of writing the note. And I'm thankful that we do have some scenes of seeing motherhood, seeing women bond over being mothers, and it's just not all doom and gloom, even though this is a very serious book covering a very serious topic. Another thing that I see here, a theme that I see here, is being a parent can change your outlook on life, and your outlook is what is making that next generation. You are forming, because babies are born a blank slate. It is the parents and people around them who shape that brain and shape those beliefs. So it is so important to really realize who you are as a person and what you are instilling in your children. And it can just go so many ways. Like the kids can be like, okay, well, my parent can do that, I can do this. We think back to Mira, who is Rain's daughter, who was saying all these racist things, saying the N-word, and because that's what she was hearing at home, and that made her dad really think about things. And then we see with with Ruth, she's, been arrested and everything. And I think that really sets her son off the rails, where he's like, she's going to jail. Like, I can just do whatever. I think there is more to that. I do think there's anger in him, and it just, you don't care anymore because everything is being taken from you. But I do think it really just shows parenting. And what I said, being a parent can change your outlook on life, and then the next generation, you are instilling your beliefs and shaping the beliefs of that child who is going to go into the next generation, and so on. So those are my notes for Small Great Things. I really don't know what my reading day is going to look like tomorrow, because I have to go to Myrtle Beach once again. And yeah, that sucks being an adult, doing adult things and not getting to do things that you won't, But I'm going to try a new Italian restaurant that has a white pizza. It is pizza with no tomato, and y'all know I'm about to go eat spaghetti, but tomatoes have given me issues. Like, they give me really bad acid reflux, knock on wood, but this pizza is pizza without that. So I'm really excited to see what that's going to taste like. And that is the exciting part. Maybe I'll convince my dad for me to go to Goodwill. You never know. I have not been on the middle of the weekday. Oh, and then I'm going to Target. So yeah, it's going to be very busy tomorrow, so I don't know. If all that wasn't happening, I probably would finish the book tomorrow since I'm at 81%, but I don't really see that being possible. Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I'm sorry, I never know what day of the week it is. But yes, I did go to Myrtle Beach today, so it was like a half and half success because I did go to the post office and I had all the documents that the website said that we needed to have, but then when we get there, she's like, you have to have this, and I won't have that probably for another 8 months. So that was, yeah. And then I went to the UPS store, which is where the PO box is, and that is in my name. So I was able to do all that, but I wasn't able to do the stuff with the postal service. But I did go to a new restaurant that I saw on TikTok, which is Ducati's Pizza. It was a long name, I don't know, but I recorded so y'all would have seen. But that pizza was so good. It's called a white pizza, and if you have acid reflux, I recommend this to you, but I'm not a doctor. Instead of having a tomato sauce, it has a sauce that is like the cheese that starts with an R, and it is the cheese that you'll see in like lasagna and ravioli. So that is the sauce, and then it has cheese on top, and oh my gosh, so good. I'm about to go have my leftovers, and I ate at the Grand Dunes, like their marina, I guess, just in the parking lot, and then walked by all the boats and all the big bougie yachts. I came home first to drop off my, leftover food, and then went to Target, and I did end up picking up It's Elementary by Elise Bryant. Murder was not on the PTA agenda. Love this cover, love all the colors, and this is a signed copy. And I told y'all last week I'd never seen a signed book in Target before I saw this book, so I definitely picked it up. So it says, it is a fast-paced, completely delightful new mystery about what happens when parents get a little too involved in their kids' schools, from NAACP Image Award nominee Elise Bryant. So I wondered if she was a local author since it was signed, but no, it said she lived in Long Beach, California, which is like 2,000 miles away. But I cannot wait to give this a go, just for a fun mystery, It doesn't look like it's going to be too crazy. It's fun because it's like PTA, like the PTA moms are killing people. But I did not finish Small Great Things. I have about an hour left on the audiobook, and that is like 30 pages, so I will probably finish it tomorrow. Sorry, the pollen here is really high, the grass pollen, which is the pollen that aggravates my body. So my throat has been kind of scratchy, my eyes are dry. I was kind of itchy yesterday. I'm not really itchy today, but I'm just like, I feel so gross. And then it's 90 degrees, so, that's all adding to it. But let's go through the notes that I took today. We went through that sticky note yesterday. That Ruth will go to prison, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. And just the awakening that Kennedy has in this chapter is just like, oh my gosh, it is crazy. And just everything that goes into it, and just seeing somebody really get like the carpet pulled out from under their feet. It was just, oh my gosh. As I keep telling y'all, this book is uncomfortable. It is very eye-opening, and that is why I recommend this, and I wish everybody I knew would read it, because it will just blow people's minds. So some quotes from original reader, pretend you can't see, and then, what if the puzzle of the world was a shape you didn't fit into, and the only way to survive was to mutilate yourself, carve away your corners, and sand yourself down, modify yourself to fit? How come we haven't been able to change the puzzle instead? Just so powerful and so clever of the way she words everything. I've spent months telling Ruth that a criminal lawsuit is no place to bring up race. If you do, you can't win. But if you don't, there are still costs because you're perpetrate, I don't know if that's the right word, a flawed system instead of trying to change it. I told her race isn't welcome in the courtroom, when deep down I know it's already there. It always has been. And just because I close my eyes doesn't mean it's gone away. Maybe if there were lawyers more courageous than I am, fixing the system would be as important as acquitting the client. I feel like I've been standing underneath an open window just as a baby gets tossed out. I grab the baby, right? Because who wouldn't? But then another baby gets tossed out, so I pass the baby to someone else and I make the catch. This keeps happening. And before you know it, there are a whole bunch of people who are getting really good at passing along babies, just like I'm good at catching them. But no one ever asks who the fuck is throwing the babies out the window in the first place. I've been doing my job, but who cares if the system keeps on creating situations where my job is necessary? Shouldn't we focus on the big picture instead of just catching whatever falls out the window at any given moment? And yes, that is definitely what needs to be happening. And then something that happens with Edison, I'm like, why? But again, I have so many of those questions throughout this book, but it just makes sense. It's logical of why these things would be happening. Another quote, no, I mean equity. Equality is treating everyone the same, but equity is taking differences into account so everyone has a chance to succeed. More that we have here, and then there's also one from me. But even if we took every white supremacist on the planet and shipped them off to Mars, there would still be racism. That's because racism isn't just about hate. We all have biases, even if we don't think we do. It's because racism is also about who has power and who has access to it. When I started working on this case, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't see myself as a racist. Now I realize I am, not because I hate people of different races, but because intentionally or unintentionally, I've gotten a boost from the color of my skin, just like Ruth Jefferson suffered a setback because of hers. There is a difference between active and passive racism. It's kind of like when you get on the moving walkway at the airport. If you walk down it, you're going to get to the other end faster if you just stand still. But you're ultimately going to wind up in the same spot. Active racism is having a swastika tattoo on your head. Active racism is telling a nurse supervisor that an African American nurse can't touch your baby. It's snickering at a black joke. But passive racism, it's noticing there's only one person of color in your office and not asking your boss why. It's reading your kids' fourth grade curriculum and seeing that the only black history covered is slavery and not questioning why. It's defending a woman in court whose indictment directly resulted from her race and glossing over the fact like it hardly matters. And then this quote that I think perfectly describes this book is, I bet you feel uncomfortable right now. And those are all my notes on small great things for the day. But basically, that last chapter really solidified that this is going to be a 5 out of 5. Guys, so I ended up finishing the score by Elle Kennedy. Last time I wanted to say Lucy's score, but that's not it. By Elle Kennedy, and I ended up giving the book a 3-star, and it has been that's funny with the series, this is getting worse and worse as it goes, so hopefully the rest of the books, I think there's 2 more books, end up being going well. So let's talk characters. These characters, I just wish there had been more building and we didn't get to their hookup right off the bat, because they're all like, this isn't like me. And I'm like, well, this is how we're introduced to you, so this is how the character is going to view you. So I think there just needed to be a little more building before we get to that initial interaction between the characters. The atmosphere was a little dated. I will say this was published in 2016 and definitely reads like it. You're going to have Twilight references, which that's kind of a little late for. You're going to have Game of Thrones references, and just the text lingo and everything is a little bit different than it is now, but it made me nostalgic and I did like that part of the book. The writing, it's fine and totally what you would expect of a romance. I didn't have any issues or any, praise for it either, but the dialogue did just seem fake at times. That's not really how people talk, which is kind of strange because in the first 2 books, I think they perfected the dialogue. The author perfected the dialogue for how people really talk, like how 20-year-olds really talk. When in this book, it just seemed kind of cringeworthy at times. And as for the plot, it ultimately again falls back on the character development. If we had those characters developed a little more, I would have been more intrigued by the plot. But I will say the spice in this is very spicy, very kinky, and it is probably the spiciest book in the series so far, in my opinion. So if you want a romance that is more spicy rather than emotional, then yes, I would recommend that you pick this up. But again, it is like the 3rd book in the series. You don't have to read the series in order. I just like to do that. So, I mean, you've made it this far, so why wouldn't you pick it up? So what will my next ebook read be? we're going to be finishing up the Century Trilogy by Ken Follett. I do have the hardback, on my others are paperback, but you know, this was only $7 for this, which you cannot beat that. You cannot beat that. I got it at the Nook in Hartsville. So this is The Edge of Eternity. Again, this is the third book in a series. And we have our map here, which is just America. Are we going to have Europe on another side? No. Oh, there was a bookmark in here. I did not see that I already had a bookmark in here. And this, oh, the thing we see here is the Freedom Rides in 1961, so the Civil Rights Movement. And this is, the series has been following several interconnected families from the start of the century with like World War I, Russian Revolution, women's suffrage, going through time. The second book is like World War II, the 1950s, and now we are going into the 1960s and to eternity. As we can see, we have Vietnam, Apollo, the White House, all on the cover here. And the first book in the series, Fall of Giants, literally, I think it's his best book, in my opinion. I loved it, and I learned so much. And I did read that on ebook, so we are continuing the ebook with this. I don't remember if I read the second book, if it was audio or if I just read it physically. I think I read in tandem, if I remember correctly. And just when I was reading the book, it was not a good time for me to be reading that book. I still loved it, but I think these big tomes work better for me if I'm reading just, you know, a chapter a day or whatever. But let's see if there's anything I can tell y'all about. Okay, so Edge of Eternity, the finale, covers one of the most tumultuous eras of all, the 1960s through the 1980s, encompassing civil rights, assassinations, Vietnam, the Berlin Wall, the Cuban Missile Crisis, presidential impeachment, revolution, and rock and roll. So, I'm seeing South Carolina on here. We have Rock Hill, Winsboro, Columbia, Sumter, and Charleston. But this is, oh, what is this? 2AT from GT, Christmas 2014. So this book was a Christmas gift way back in 2014, but we are finally going to get to this. Do we have a family tree like we have in the other books? You have your cast of character list, which we love when books have that, because sometimes I get confused and need to go check all that. And then we do have, I'm going to hold it back so if you haven't read the series you don't get any spoilers, but we do have family trees. We love that. So it's starting in 1961, and this will be at my mood to read, so I'm going to be reading this after the game tonight. We're not going to get into this for like another 10 hours, but I did want to tell you I finished the score, and we'll be reading Edge of Eternity next. I just finished the book, and this is my first like full 5-star of the year. I think this book is so important, and I totally forgot. I need to put this in there. But we're going to go through Call Pal, even though, as I said, I know what I'm rating the book, but just to like give y'all a review of my thoughts and everything. But yeah, look at the tabs. Now these colors of the tabs don't mean anything, because I know I used to color coordinate the tabs, but now I color coordinate the ink that my notes are in. So let's start with characters. These characters are all, it shows you really, I'm not going to say they're lovable characters, but they are real characters that it shows you why these people believe what they believe, why certain groups of people believe what they believe, and helps you have an understanding of humans and race in the United States. It's just so impactful and powerful. I always have such a hard time reviewing 5-star books as like vocally, trying to get all those thoughts out there. Now, the characters did do things or said things that annoyed me at times, but I would have to remind myself, this is really how somebody in this situation would be. This is really something that somebody like this would say, and it's just so real. The atmosphere, y'all know, I was hesitant about the atmosphere. I was like, I don't really know what to do. Oh, and I thought all the character arcs were fantastic. They were perfect. Now, the atmosphere, I was unsure about how to feel about the atmosphere, but I do think that it really shows that just racism can happen anywhere. It's not just in the South. It can happen in Connecticut. It can happen in a hospital. You're going to have white supremacists, people with Confederate flags everywhere, not just in the South. And that it's a whole, this is America. This is what is happening in America. And I think it showcases that perfectly. The writing, I will admit, it did get a lot at some points because you're just having so much information, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to have to remember? So I would recommend that you do take notes while reading this, because it is a lot. This is a lot to take in, and okay, we'll get to my next point in a minute, but it can be a lot, and that was kind of scaring me at first when I was reading all these medical terms, things I wasn't really familiar with. But Jodi Picoult does such a great job at educating you and making sure that you understand what is being said, and you will leave understanding what you needed to understand. But for plot, this book, it made me uncomfortable, and I think there were a lot of great quotes, especially near the end, and do read the author's notes. But it says, so she tried to write this book back, I don't know, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and just didn't, you know, she was having a hard time with it and didn't think it was her place as a white woman to write this story. So, you know, she went about educating herself, and she just got that spark of like, this is my time to write this now. So it says, suddenly I knew I could and would finish this novel. Unlike my first aborted foray, I wasn't writing to tell people of color what their lives were like. I was writing to my own community, white people, who can very easily point to a neo-Nazi skinhead and say he's a racist, but who can't recognize racism in themselves. And then this one that I think perfectly describes this book, I wrote it because I believed it was the right thing to do, and because the things that make us most uncomfortable are the things that teach us what we all need to know. Because I know a lot of people, when they read this, they are going to feel uncomfortable. They're going to feel called out. I can definitely relate with Kennedy and a lot of the instances that she's been through as a white woman, and how she perceived race and racism in the United States. That this book is so eye-opening, not just to the characters, but to the readers as well. I think a lot of times you see books that are eye-opening for the readers, but you're seeing these characters have these awakenings in their lives as well. And I think that's so impactful that not just the readers, but the characters as well are having these thoughts. Another big theme is being a parent, and it is so important for the parents to instill the beliefs into the child, and that it is your role as a parent to raise your child the right way and to educate your child. And it's so hard to talk about, to get these words right, because yeah, I just finished the book and now I'm recording this. But yes, parenting is a really big thing, and really just that focus on the next generation and trying to break the system, trying to make the world a better place. And I mean, the future, the kids are what can do that. So it's so important to just teach your kids. I think this needs to be required reading for like college age. I think early 20s would be a great time to pick up this book. And I mean, anytime as an adult, because, you know, I'm 25, that you need to read this book. This is a book that everybody needs to read. It needs to be required reading for adults. And just so impactful and so important, and I cannot recommend that you guys pick this up enough. Let's look at the book I am about to start, and that is Displacement by Kiku Hughes, and this was the Young Adult Literature Award honor for Asian Pacific American Libraries Association. So this is going to be my graphic novel of the month. I like to add a graphic novel to my TBR every month, and I'm going to read y'all the description now, so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Suddenly, Kiku is torn out of her own time. Though she was on vacation in present-day San Francisco just moments before, Kiku now finds herself displaced to the 1940s Japanese-American internment camp, where her late grandmother Ernestina was forcibly relocated during World War II. Kiku is stuck with no choice but to live alongside Ernestina and other Japanese-American citizens in the internment camp. During her time with them, she witnesses the lives of people who were denied civil liberties by their own government, but still managed to create a community and commit acts of resistance in order to survive. Kiku Hughes weaves a riveting, bittersweet tale that highlights the intergenerational impact of trauma and the redemptive power of memory, so time travel elements, and then it's kind of like the author's own story, like if the author got sent back in time, so that's really interesting to tell a story like that. And back when I was in elementary school, I read one of the Dear America books that was about the Japanese internment camps, and I still think about that book, you know, however many years later, like 15 years later, I still think about that book. And I haven't read anything about the Japanese internment camps since, and we are going back to that place today to learn about this time in American history. So let's end out the vlog. I want to give y'all my update on Displacement. I read like 177 pages, but you know, graphic novel. Oh my gosh, this book smells so good. This publisher, First Second, I've read several from them. Their books are just like such great quality, you know, like physical quality. So I really appreciate that and like that a lot. I also bought myself a new pair of glasses while reading that, because I don't know if y'all noticed, these are like too big for my face. Like they slide off anytime I like do that, or if I'm sweaty. So oh gosh, I literally just scratched right there. But I ordered and they're by Coach, so kind of bougie. And so I ordered some new glasses that are in the size small. So hopefully they're not too tight and give me a headache. But these, I just get so annoyed because they're constantly like falling off my face. So hopefully that all works out. But Displacement, that's what we're here to talk about. This is a time travel story. How the time travel is done is very similar to Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, where we have this person going back in time. They are there for like short instances, you know, it's not like Outlander where Claire's there for a really long time. It's just short little burst that the character of Kiku is there. And I'm really curious if we're going to get explanation on the time travel. I don't think we will. I don't see it going there, but I'm really intrigued to know what is happening in 2016. Like, does she vanish, or is it just one day there? I'm interested in that bit, but that's not what the point of the story is. The point of the story is how history repeats itself, even though, I mean, are people being sent to internment camps? It's constantly a threat. People in power are like always threatening to do stuff like that, or talking about doing stuff like that. And everybody's probably like, oh, that's not really going to happen. We're not really going to go there again. But that's why it's so important to know history. That's what our character of Kiku, who's coming from 2016, who she's there and she's like, it's really pointless that I came from the future because I didn't learn enough in the present and know enough about this situation in the present to help my situation here. And that's something that my next point is that this is never really talked about. Yes, we did learn about it in school, but are there like memorials, monuments for this to showcase this part of history? We don't really see it in media. There's so many World War II books and movies, but I've never, like I told you all, the one book I've read on this, but I've never seen it on TV. I've never seen it in a movie, but I've never looked for it either. So that, you know, that could fall on me, that there could be stuff out there. But are there memorials, monuments? I'm sure there has to be museums, right? Like, I just think more needs to be done for this to be remembered. Because as I said, yeah, we did learn about it in school, but, you know, like, I think you need a little bit more than that. And we have Kiku, who is being taken from her own time. So she is being taken from her own time. She is being displaced from her own time. But also our other characters who are actually from that time period, they're being taken away from their lives as well. They're being taken from their lives, their homes, and being sent to these camps, not knowing what's going to happen to them, not knowing if they're going to be sent to Japan, if they're going to be sent to war. They don't know what's going to happen. And so they are also displaced. I thought that was really clever that both a time traveler and then the characters of that time period themselves are displaced. Both are displaced. I thought that was just really clever plotting there. Now, there have been some terms that I'm not really familiar with. I don't know if they're Japanese terms or just terms from history that I'm not familiar with. So Issei, I guess, Issei. I don't know if that's the older people they're talking about, or if it's a people group, or people who are not citizens yet but living in America. I'm not sure what that term means, so I wrote these down so I can look them up. And the other one is Nisei, which is Nisei, which that seems like what our characters are, like Kiku is. But I'm not really sure what these terms mean, so I do want to do some research on that. Another book that this is reminiscent of for me is The Italian Summer, because we have Kiku, who is seeing her grandmother's life, and then in One Italian Summer, we had the daughter who was seeing what her mother's life was like when her mother was young, and like this, the Kiku seeing her grandmother's life for what it was like when she was young. Stina, oh, okay, that's just a theory of do these two ever come in contact with each other? I'm really curious about that. But that is all for Displacement, my update on Displacement. I don't have my, oh, here's my journal. I was curious where this was. So I have only read over 100 pages one day this week, but today will be 2. So half of the week I have read over 100 pages, and the others one day I had a migraine, and yesterday I was out of town during the day, so I didn't really get to read. But I have completed 2 books this week, that being The Score and Small Great Things. One was a 3-star, one was a 5-star, so I will take that. That's great in my book, that I enjoyed both books. So what will we be focusing on next week? Next week is going to be our reset. I don't know how much of that I'm going to get done once again. I know I need to do like the wrap up. I need to do the background for my Kindle. Did I ever post the May one on Reddit? I don't know if I did. That's gonna be something I have to look at. But yeah, it's just been so chaotic and so busy with life, and I really wish I could say more, but I just care too much about other people that I don't want to put all my feelings out there. That's why having a written journal is great as well, because these vlogs are like a journal or a diary or whatever to me, but having a written one as well, where I can really put all my emotions and just put all of that into words, is really helpful. So I know a lot of people, like when we were kids, we thought diaries and all were silly, but it is very helpful to just get all those words out. It feels really good. But what will we be reading next week? We're going to be reading my nonfiction pick, which is The Princes in the Tower, The Vanishing of the Princes in the Tower. I'm not remembering the name, but this is a nonfiction about the 2 princes of York. So Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville, they were a marriage that wasn't really approved of by the nobility, because she was not nobility and he was King of England. Or I don't know if he was king yet when they got married, but you know, he's a high-ranking person. So when he dies, his brother Richard III, iconic Shakespearean figure, takes the throne. Except his older brother had those two sons who are a threat to Richard's claim to the throne. Richard sends these boys to the tower to be imprisoned there. These boys are never seen again. Were they murdered? Were they just let out because they're children so they could change identities? Nobody knows. To this day, hundreds of years later, we do not know what happened to the princes in the tower, and this book is going to be diving all into that mystery. So true crime, but from hundreds of years ago, should be quite interesting. It's a mystery that there's so many different theories for, because bodies have been found, but nobody knows that those bodies are them. There have been people, you know, at the time who, like, 15 years later came out being like, I'm one of the princes in the tower. And it's like, were they really? Who knows? Or were they just imposters? So nobody knows what happened to these boys. But next week, maybe we will have some new theories, and maybe I'll have I mean, I personally think they were murdered and thrown into the river. I don't know, but that just seems to me the most likely case, but you never know. Did I haul any books this week? Yeah, I did. I should have included this part in the wrap-up. It's Elementary by Elise Bryant. Sorry I didn't include that. But that is all for this week's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it all the way through, leave a flower, we have plants all around me, flower emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!